Peter MacKay, who was the Member of Parliament for the riding of Central Nova, which used to be called, back in my day, it was called Pictou Guysborough Antigonish. And I know this because I used to live in Peter MacKay's riding. I used to live in a town called New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. Very small town of Scottish Canadians and some uh, black Canadians who were freed slaves, and we moved there from Oshawa. But we lived. I grew up there. I could say that I grew up in New Glasgow for the early times in my life, from 1999 up until 2003. And I've met Peter MacKay. He came to my school when I was in elementary school. Very tall guy, young guy, talking to us about education and all sorts of stuff. He's now running to be the conservative leader, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And he wants to, obviously, with that, want to be prime minister. He also used to be the leader of the now defunct Progressive Conservative Party of Canada, and until Stephen Harper and Peter MacKay joined forces and created the now current Conservative Party of Canada. Harper was the leader of the Canadian Alliance, which was a more right-wing, socially conservative, a right-wing populist party, and the Progressive Conservative Party was more liberal conservative, more fiscally conservative on the economy, and more tolerant when it came to social issues. They were the Tories at the time, and they joined forces and created the Conservative Party of Canada. And now Peter MacKay is at it again, trying to run for the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And I was willing to give Peter MacKay a chance. I'm not one of these. I'm an independent, first of all. I'm not conservative. I am not liberal. I am not socialist. I consider myself a populist, nationalist, revolutionary. Okay, and I have a certain charter, a list, a constitution, if you will, of my beliefs, and the candidate that closely resembles those beliefs will get Arana Nation support and my support. I was willing to give him a chance. I don't care about red Tory, blue Tory, this and they're all no good anyway. There are some good things about red Tories. They like to help individuals. They believe in helping those less fortunate, using noblesse oblige. I agree with that. Making sure that the rich get as rich as possible, but then forcing them to use their wealth to help society. I agree with that. There are some things I like about the Mike Harris type of conservatives or Harper conservatives. They believe in growing. They believe in personal responsibility, rugged individualism, making sure that you become rich and wealthy and successful. Everybody becomes rich and wealthy and successful. But there are bad things about them as well. I thought that and so I was willing to give Peter a chance. But something has come out that I did not know about him, which has completely cost him my support and this nation's support. I will not be supporting Peter MacKay because he is an apologist. He was very soft on Omar Khadr. And I think Peter MacKay, even more so than Justin the tacky-headed, tar-faced, swift-foot, two-faced Matt Daddy Trudeau, is more responsible for Omar Khadr's freedom today than Peter's more responsible for Omar Khadr's freedom today than Justin is. Because Justin gave Omar Khadr, and let me explain to you who Omar Khadr is. Omar Khadr was a terrorist picked up by the Americans, pleaded guilty to killing 2 American soldiers, killed them in cold blood. Their families were devastated, children devastated, everybody was devastated. He was sent to Guantanamo Bay. He was treated a little bit roughly. I would have torn his eyes out with a pencil, with a knife. I would have chopped his toes off. I would have chopped his testicles off. You think waterboarding is rough? You ought to go to the Arana Nation version of Guantanamo Bay. You'd have had you killing soldiers who've got families who most likely come from poor families because that's what America likes to do. They don't like sending the George Bush's children or Donald Trump's children or any of the... They want to send the poor children from ghettos and from trailer parks and from, broken families, people who need to, sending those people to war, then you kill them in cold blood? You just murder them like that? There's no excuse for that. That's unforgivable. I would have torn out your eyes with a knife. But anyway, let's not risk getting demonetized again. That's what I would have done. And because he was treated a little roughly, he was waterboarded a little roughly by the Americans, he was let go. He's given $10 million by the Canadians because of Justin the Tacky and MacKay Trudeau. That is awful. But what's more awful is that Peter MacKay, as Justice Minister, and Stephen Harper, they let the brother go. Now, here's how it gets really bad. Peter MacKay actually said that Omar is redeemed. He's redeemed. I'm so proud of him. In fact, let me give you the quote. Peter MacKay praises Omar Khadr for renouncing violence as Stephen Harper stays mum. Okay. He can renounce violence all he wants. Yeah, he's free. He's going to get $10 million. The brother is home free. But, let's say, for example, some individual who's in Canadian prison right now or American prison, and they skipped one of his meals or something like that. Let's think of this, okay? Imagine there's a Canadian who has raped 2 girls. Raped them in their bed, tore off their underwear, tore off their bra, choked them up, stuck his you-know-what in his penis and in their vagina, and just raped these poor 13-year-old girls. He's Canadian. And he's sent to American jail. And he's beaten up by the prisoners because... that's what prisoners do to rapists. They beat you up. They whoop you up. The worst criminal on the planet hates rapists. Osama bin Laden himself hates pedophiles, I should say. Pedophiles. The worst criminal in the world hates pedophiles. He'll beat you up. Okay? He's beaten up and the prison allows it, or they don't do anything about it. The Canadian government hears about this. They say, bring him back here. He's being treated unfair. Yeah, he's being treated unfairly. He's being beaten up by being a pedophile. Yeah, it's not really done. They don't do anything. Bring him back. We want to bring him back. And then they bring him back, and he renounces rape and pedophilia. And Peter MacKay says, wow, this guy is reformed. I am proud of him. Yes, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I am proud that he renounces violence against girls. Does that make sense to you? You can renounce it all you want, but when you murder, when you rape, when you do things like that, that's a life sentence as far as I'm concerned. Life! Life! Not none of this 10 million, and then imagine you got this Mac Daddy here, the son of Satan, Justin the Tackhead Mac Daddy Trudeau, comes into power and gives the pedophile $10 million. I wouldn't be surprised if he did that anyway. He likes pedophiles. Ingvaldson, one of Trudeau's best friends, is a pedophile. So I wouldn't be surprised. So, and that's what's happening. And that's what Peter MacKay did. Omar Khadr killed 2 American soldiers. Murdered them. Because of his hatred in his heart. Murdered them. Was sent to Guantanamo Bay to get information about who he was working for. Rightly so. I'm not a neocon. I'm not a interventionist. But there is one thing I support the neocons on. And that's if you are working for a terrorist organization and you want to get information, I'll tear you up. Yes, I'll tear you up. 100%. But the Canadians thought he was being treated a little too roughly by Guantanamo Bay, and so he was let out and sent back to Canada. And after a few times in jail in Canada, he says he renounces violence, and Peter MacKay says, oh, how wonderful! How wonderful! And he says, and to try and make it sound not as bad, he says, be careful, he's a terrorist, but how wonderful! You notice Stephen Harper didn't do that. I'm not saying Harper was perfect, but that cost Peter my support. If you can give a terrorist who kills 2 soldiers the benefit of the doubt. Who else are you going to give a benefit of the doubt to if they renounce their evil ways? You're gonna, if a pedophile renounces his evil ways, will you give him the benefit of the doubt and actually be in charge of his release? Because Peter MacKay, you have to understand, was the justice minister in charge. I would say he is the primary responsible individual. If you want to ask Arana Nation, who is mostly responsible for giving this terrorist, this cold-blooded killer Omar Khadr his freedom, I'll say Peter MacKay. I would say Peter MacKay. And that, as a result, does not warrant support from a patriot, law and order individual like myself. He's not going to get my support. I don't care how nice he is. I don't care if he came from my old hometown. I don't care if I knew Peter MacKay, not knew him, but saw him as a kid and, high-fived him as a kid. There's literally a picture of your commander-in-chief, Michael Arana, high-fiving Peter MacKay. I won't support him, though, because he gives Omar Khadr, terrorist, a benefit of the doubt, and he let him go! Which then, in turn, allowed Justin the tacky-headed, tar-faced, swift-foot Matt Daddy Trudeau to give Omar Khadr $10 million. How can you give someone $10 million because they were treated a little roughly in American prison? And that's why I gave the example. If a pedophile raped 2 girls, was sent to prison, got beaten up, the prison system didn't do anything about it, the Canadian government wants him back, they send him back, and then he gets $10 million for getting beaten up, does that sound right to you? So don't give me any of this thing about the law and we have to respect social justice and people's human rights and all this garbage. Don't give me that. And what's worse is that not only is Peter MacKay sympathetic to Omar Khadr, but Peter MacKay's wife is also sympathetic to Omar Khadr. His wife, his new wife, not the one who left him, who dumped him, Belinda Stronach. I don't even know if they were married, but there's Belinda Stronach. People say she's pretty. But she was a conservative turned liberal. She dumped Peter MacKay right where he stood, and not her, but Peter MacKay's activist wife by the name of Nazarene Afshin Jam. Anyway, I won't say anything. And by the way, Peter MacKay was defense minister, not justice minister. But his activist wife was the one who was demanding that Omar Khadr be sent back to Canada. This terrorist who kills 2 soldiers. Human rights activist Nazarene Afshin Jam, the wife of Defense Minister Peter MacKay, says Ottawa should bring Omar Khadr, a man who kills 2 American soldiers, home back to Canada. But the issue should be left to the Canadian and U.S. governments. And, she's fairly beautiful. I'm sure Peter MacKay would listen to a hot thing like that. Can you imagine? She would probably support bringing all these ISIS people back home. So if she supports, I wonder if Peter supports it too. I wonder if Peter MacKay supported the $10 million given to Omar Khadr. I wonder. This is why I can't support him. Afshin Jam told Prince Edward Island's daily newspaper, The Guardian, that it's time for Khadr, a Canadian citizen, to be repatriated from Guantanamo Bay. Listen, guys, patriots, if I ever become a terrorist for ISIS or something, you can argue whether or not, these terrorists, and all this stuff like that. I'm a non-interventionist, I believe that a lot of, Zionist Israel and the United States of America, they create terrorists and then they ship them to us because they want to grow their population in the Middle East. They ship us terrorists. That's why they do this. I agree with that. But, if I ever become a terrorist, I'm a Canadian since I was born in Oshawa. That's more Canadian than anything. Make sure I don't come back. I'll be crucified out there. I'll stay out there and eat dates for the rest of my life. That's unacceptable. The Khadr has been detained on the U.S. military naval base For a decade after his arrest in Afghanistan, the Toronto-born Khadr was 15 years old when he was accused of throwing a grenade that killed an American soldier. He pleaded guilty before a U.S. tribunal. He was sentenced to 8 years of imprisonment with 1 year to be served in Guantanamo. Omar was a child when he was involved in combat under the UN definition. Who cares about that? So, the Iranian-born Afshinjam has been outspoken on international human rights issues and her anti-war beliefs. She has cited UN rules on protecting juveniles and all this sort of stuff like this. So, she is responsible for advocate. I wonder if maybe she said to Peter MacKay, listen, you send him back, I'll stop denying you sex. These are things we have to think about. So, no, I can't support Peter MacKay. I will not support Peter MacKay. No way, no how, no Peter MacKay. This is the Arana Nation.